We are live.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to NotebookLM for Beginners. We're going to have such an amazing session today. I'm going to move rather quickly because we have a lot to get through, and I just want to make sure that we have time for everything we need to do. So at any time, if you really want me to slow down and explain something in a little more detail, just throw that in the chat and Justine will let me know. Well, why don't we just get right into introducing ourselves here? My name is Catherine Clark. I'm your presenter for today. I'm coming to you today from Calgary, which is on Treaty 7 lands. My pronouns are she, her. Over to you, Justine.
My name is Justine Timenez. I am coming from Brampton, Ontario. I'm on Treaty 14. I'm also she, her, and I am the MC admin, but also excited to learn. I've used NotebookLM a little bit, but love to see what else there is because you don't know until you know.
Awesome. And NotebookLM is my absolute favorite AI tool for all kinds of different applications, and we'll talk about why. So let's dive right in. First of all, let's talk about our land acknowledgement. I mentioned that I'm coming to you from Calgary, which is situated where the Bow and Elbow rivers meet and has been known for thousands of years by the Blackfoot word for elbow, which is Mokinsis. So one of my favorite things to do here is just wander along the banks of the Bow River, which is close to where I live, and particularly just to notice how all of the trees and the other life along the banks of the Bow River changes with the seasons. Monday, we had a huge dump of snow here, and so everything looks really magical out in my favorite place. And as we are in Alberta, I will share the Alberta Teachers Association land acknowledgement with you now. The Alberta Teachers Association respectfully acknowledges that we are on Treaty 7 territory, the traveling route, gathering place, and meeting grounds for Indigenous peoples, including the Siksikaitsitapi, comprised of the Siksika, Kainai, Piikani, Amskapi Piikani First Nations, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, and the Yarhe Nakota, including the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Goodstoney First Nations, Métis Otipemisiwak, and Isikisimu Nunangat, whose histories, languages, cultures, and traditions continue to influence our vibrant community. We are grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today and those who have gone before us. We recognize the land as an act of reconciliation and gratitude to those whose territory we are on or are visiting. All right. I hope you all take a moment to just think about the land where you are and what it means to you as well. So this session is brought to you by Logix Academy. Remember to take a moment to go and look at our many other professional development opportunities. There's so many offerings. If you're a classroom teacher like I am as well, the co-taught lessons are something that I can't recommend strongly enough, because you can bring cutting edge, high-tech learning to your students without having to be an expert yourself. So you can bring an expert into your classroom who teaches it alongside you. You learn alongside your students. It's a fantastic, it's just a fantastic offering that's really unique to Logix. All right, so here are some of the amazing sponsors that help Logix bring these engaging and comprehensive computer science solutions to you. We have, as I mentioned, my favorite, which is the co-taught lessons, but we also have robotics, curriculum, resources, and professional development, which is what we're doing today. Don't forget, we're also a vendor of STEM products. So some examples here: robotics, that's always fun in every classroom, no matter how small or big the kids are. Digital microscopes, that's one of my favorite tools as a middle school science teacher. And laser cutters and 3D printers, which are amazingly affordable for many schools. So just definitely worthwhile looking into those products as well. A big, huge thank you to Sandy Curry, who is the Gen AI for Educators project manager with Google Canada. It's because of their support that we are able to bring this workshop to you today. So thank you very much to Sandy. All right, take a moment now, and I'll remind you again before the end of the session, but it's probably worth your while now to take a moment, scan that QR code, or go to the bit.ly link there and grab your AI certificate of learning for today's session. The session title is NotebookLM for Beginners. All right, moving on. There are also links to all of today's sessions that you can get the recordings to as well. So don't forget to go back and check. Maybe there's something else happening that you're not able to attend. I know there's certainly some on the list for today that I'm keen to go back and watch. So make sure that you check out those links and pick up any sessions that you might have missed that might be worthwhile. And a special shout out to the Student Experiences Workshop. If you watch it before December 2nd, you can be entered into a draw for a Chromebook. So make sure to check that one out. Facilitated by the amazing Cami Cannikins, who does such fantastic workshops for Logix as well. I've had the pleasure of working with her several times in the past. All right. Also, another QR code for you. All of the workshops in our computer science education month, not week, but month, are free and recorded. So check out that link, scan that QR code. Don't forget to go and check out the amazing offers that are available through Logix and our fantastic sponsors. Okay, so next slide here is another reminder about this hour of AI with Logix, proudly supported by our sponsors. So we have Your Voice is Power, which is a really awesome tool for students, and a couple of other great opportunities here. So be sure to check these out. These are for students, unlike the professional development sessions that we're offering today. So something great that you might be able to bring to your classrooms. A few more sessions here: CS First, Codingville, Minecraft, Canva, another set of great student workshops for you. All right. Again, one more reminder, chance for you to click that link or scan the QR code if you haven't already done so. Oh, I thought we took that one out, but that is okay. So I think we have maybe a little lag on our slides, not catching up there, but that is a-okay. We're just gonna jump ahead and we'll make sure. What I'm gonna do very quickly is I'm gonna throw Justine the updated bit.ly link. So just because I know I updated that before. And I'm actually just going to put it in the chat here to make sure we have the right link for these slides. So if you'd like a copy of these slides, that's the link there, just in case that didn't get updated along with the others. So let's look at what our agenda is today and jump right into NotebookLM for Beginners. So today's plan, we're going to work on understanding the differences between NotebookLM and other tools and apply that understanding to build effective classroom support tools. So we'll start off with what is NotebookLM, what makes it different from some of the other tools that you're probably familiar with, like ChatGPT, Copilot, Gemini. And we'll look at how you can build your workspaces or your notebooks in NotebookLM, some examples, and hopefully a little bit of time for you to play around in there as well. All right, before we begin, I always think it's worthwhile to remind people about the importance of being aware of your jurisdictions and your school boards or school districts' policies and regulations about AI, and particularly when it comes to sharing student information. I know most school boards are pretty strict about that. So just be aware of your district's guidelines and make sure you follow them. If you're not sure about those, check with your administration. They can definitely let you know what the guidelines are. All right. So to start up with NotebookLM, okay, let me just jump in and let you know the difference with NotebookLM from any other AI is that it only uses your sources. So it's not just drawing on all the information out there in the internet to make its responses. You upload sources first, and it uses your sources to generate the responses. So it does take a little bit of time to set up because you have to upload your sources first, and then you ask it to use your sources to generate information for your notebooks. So that's one fantastic tool that you have at your disposal there, is that it's not prone to as many hallucinations. I'm not going to say it has zero errors, but it is certainly much more likely to be accurate because it's drawing on your sources. So as with anything, the information is only as good as the sources you put in. But if you put in sources that you're confident are reliable, then you can have a greater confidence in the responses from your notebook. So on the free version of NotebookLM, you get only 50 sources, but that's actually a lot. I don't have many notebooks that have more than about 10 or 12 sources, actually. So it is excellent, and 50 is very generous. You can theme your notebooks or focus them on specific tasks or roles. My personal preference is to get highly, highly specific with a small number of sources, rather than having a huge number of sources and looking for more generalities. But again, that's a personal preference in how I use the tool. How about you, Justine? Do you have a favorite way to use NotebookLM?
I've actually used it. I'm at the school board, so I'm not in a classroom. So I do what we do a lot of is looking at a lot of different ministry documents alongside my school board documents. So I love to put them in there. And then, you know, the real importance of that time is time, right? So instead of me having to take the time to read these 100-page documents, I'm able to put them in there and ask those specific questions to understand it a lot better. So it really is, especially when you're thinking about those PL days that teachers have and you're asked to read these specific documents. How are we using our time wisely? This really helps me to know the important part of what those documents are, rather than me spending an hour reading, skimming through it and not really diving deep. This allows me to dive deep. And now, once I know, then I can start asking those specific questions to Notebook LM. Even comparing certain documents is a great way I use it as well.
Excellent. And that is a fantastic tool to use. I'm in the middle of graduate studies, so I use it a lot for academic sources as well. Alberta has just released a lot of new curriculum over the past couple of years, and it can be really helpful. Obviously, you know your own particular specialty or grade level in great detail, but to be able to fence post what skills are students coming to me with, what skills do I need to set them up for in future grades. It's a great tool to be able to identify those key points in a large, dense document. So that's a great tip. Thank you, Justine. So the initial work in Notebook is you adding your sources. So as I alluded to earlier, your sources are everything. You create what NotebookLM can do for you. So they help to determine the scope and criteria of what you're looking at. You can combine a lot of different file types and sources. You can include video, so it accepts YouTube videos, MP3 files, MP4 files, MPEG files. So you can do video and audio, Word docs, so Word docs need to be converted to Google Docs, which is very easy to do. Because it is a Google product, it can pull straight from your Google Drive. So you can't upload a Word doc, either convert it to a PDF or to a Google Doc and then import it. So huge list of file types that are supported. I'm not going to go through it all, but one limitation is that it doesn't work with spreadsheets or Excel sheets. So that is something to think about. But other than that, it really is pretty limitless in what it can do. So what makes Notebook different? it will tell you when it doesn't know. So here's an example of a prompt that I created in a notebook that I have working on. Obviously, it says, I asked it, tell me about the history of Air Jordans, the shoe. And it says, based on the sources provided, I cannot tell you about the history of Air Jordans because your sources are focused on learning theories and teaching perspectives. And then it says specifically, and it gave me a nice long cited list of things that it can tell me, but it can't tell me about the history of Air Jordans. So that is a nice, refreshing feature of NotebookLM. And that, again, is because you're giving it the sources that you want it to work with. So let's take a moment now. I encourage everybody who's joined us to take, let's say, 3 or 4 minutes, go to NotebookLM. You can see the link is there, notebooklm.google.com. And if you haven't already created an account, sign in with your Google account and open a new notebook and add a couple of sources. And we'll stop there and then we'll go through a little bit more explanation and then we'll come back. But we'll get our sources set up for now so that you are ready to go when it's practicing time. And for your sources, remember you could grab a YouTube video, an audio file, anything from your Google Drive except for a sheet. PDFs are a great source. It's quite good at reading PDFs, whereas I find some other Gen AI tools occasionally have challenges with the formatting in PDFs when they're reading them. I've had a few instances where I've uploaded a PDF and it says, this is a blank document. And I don't tend to get that in NotebookLM. So that's good.
I will say sometimes there are challenges with mine. Like sometimes with websites sometimes, and maybe it's too big. Maybe it wants something smaller. I do think it is important to vet also obviously what you're putting in there, especially if your district allows you for student use. I think it's a great way to kind of use AI and you in a closed setting where you provide the documentation and the sources, and then they're just asking it through what your sources are. But then again, like you said, we do need to vet and make sure that it makes sense. I've done it. Yeah, I've done it. Like you said, getting those really important sources on a topic and then asking is great. But for right now, choose anything.
Yeah, for now, pick whatever you like. And it can be themed. So you might want to pick a couple of a YouTube video and then a website and a document that are themed on the same topic, but they don't have to be themed. NotebookLM is really great at doing a compare and contrast as well, and can tell you what the similarities and differences are, and it can help you find maybe some commonalities that you didn't know existed. So for now, just get a couple of sources ready to go. And I'm just going to move ahead because we are kind of limited on time and I don't want to end up being short at the end. You can listen to me talk and continue adding sources in a different tab while we're moving ahead here. So let's talk about building your notebooks. We talked about sources and why they're important. And again, if you do plan to use this for students, if it's approved by your district, which it's not in mine, but in some it may be, you could create a notebook and share that with your students. So there is a share button that you can click on and you can share the notebook. And then so you would have added the sources and then it would be prepared for the students to work with. So you on the left panel, you have your sources. Then in the middle, the largest window is the chat. And this is going to be very similar to what you're used to with other Gen AI tools. And except it's only drawing from your sources for the answers. It's not just going to the internet for the answers. So the chat is pretty powerful, pretty comparable to every other AI I've used. It can give you a summary. It offers suggestions for searches that you might like to do. It's ready for refinements from your side to go towards the direction that you'd like to pursue. And I made a typo here, safe to note. I meant to say save to note, but they have, in the time since I made the slides and the time I was last using NotebookLM, which was yesterday, they have upgraded. And now all of your chats are saved, so you don't have to save them to a note. I found out the hard way initially that the chats were not saved, and I had to try and recreate one of my prompts, but now they're saved. So you can still find your chats in the main chat window. And then the studio options, which we're going to talk about next, because that to me is one of the coolest parts of NotebookLM. So let's take a closer look at the studio options here. These are your pre-made options, and you can see the bottom two there are grayed out, infographic and slide deck. So it lets you know what they're working on. And since I first started using NotebookLM, they have added so much. They've added the video overview, mind map, reports, flashcards, and quiz. So when I first started using NotebookLM, the key thing in what is now the studio was this audio overview. But you have 6 now options that you can just click on, and NotebookLM will generate that tool for you. We'll look at each of them in a little bit more detail, so I'm not going to belabor that point right now. All right, let's start with the audio overview. This is one of my favorite ways to use NotebookLM, especially when I'm doing my own work after I've read a number of sources for my master's program. And then I want to sort of synthesize, let's say in 1 week's readings, 3 or 4 papers that I'm looking at. I can upload the papers and click the audio overview, and I get to choose between deep dive, brief, critique, or debate. I usually do the deep dive, and it creates a podcast, very conversational, where the 2 hosts talk about all of my sources. And it gives kind of a conversational podcast type discussion. The brief overview just gives you the basics, very much more of a summary. Depending on your source, you might want to look at critique or debate, or I think for students in social studies in the higher grades, certainly in high school, this might be a really great opportunity for students to look at their source review type assignments, obviously with a lot of guidance from the teacher. But I think this creates a lot of opportunity working with students as well. You get to customize the length as well, although that's mostly through which task you choose. For the deep dive, I have found they typically are around 20 minutes, and the briefs are more like 4. So, and you can add prompts as well. What should the AI hosts focus on in this episode? If you don't give a prompt, they're going to focus on whatever the AI thinks is the most pertinent. But if you have a specific question you'd like to address, you can see in my example here, I said focus on planets and other bodies in our solar system, because some of my sources talked a little bit more about the whole universe and not just or other bodies in the galaxy, exoplanets, and not just focusing on the solar system. But I really wanted the focus to be limited to the solar system because that's what the curriculum is that I'm working with. So I added that note to help constrain the overview that I got. So great way to compare and contrast between multiple different sources. And even just to create tools to share with students, honestly, even if you're not, like in my case, I'm creating a whole bunch of stuff for the space unit that I teach in science. And it's just things that I will share with students, the audio overview, the video overview, for them to get on Google Classroom and have as supplemental material. If you do the audio overview, this is one of the coolest things is you can jump in and ask them a question. So you just click that join button and it's hilarious. Their voices are so realistic. They'll go, oh, it looks like somebody wants to ask us this question. And then you jump right in. But you can use that to refocus the conversation. So for example, I could jump in and say, oh, hang on a minute. I'd rather focus on the inner planets, the terrestrial planets of the solar system, or I'm not really interested in the whole Milky Way galaxy. I'd like to really focus on our solar system, and I can help turn it around. And then you can always, you see there's a download option as well. So you can always download it and share later with students. Or you get towards the end and it's wrapping up and you're like, wait, you didn't talk about the atmosphere on Venus. Can you please jump in and share a little bit more about that? And it will. It's really quite amazing what it can do. So definitely try that out when you do your audio overviews. For the video overviews, you get a lot of great options here as well. I would just say, hey, first of all, the audio overview takes a couple of minutes to generate, so you're going to give it a little bit of time to cook. The video overview takes like 10 minutes-ish. I mean, it's not forever, but don't expect it to, don't come into class and go, we're going to watch a cool video, click, click. It will take some time. But again, you get great options. You can do a deep dive, brief, critique, debate. You can, those I think are only the audio options. For the video overview, you get some choices of your visual style as well. And you can choose, you can choose a deep dive, brief, or critique or debate in the video. My apologies. And then again, you can help the AI to focus on a specific area of focus. So again, I chose planets and other bodies in the solar system because I didn't want to focus too much on the rest of the galaxy or the universe for this because of the limitations of the learning outcomes and the criteria. So now I have a lovely little video in the anime style. I watched it through. It's good. It's certainly not of the same quality. It's more of a slideshow, an animated slideshow than a video, but it is engaging. It's a great way to garner student interest. Again, if students have access to this tool, it might be something fun for them to put together as well. And downloadable, shareable with students. So that's your audio and video overview.
Can I just add, Catherine? Sorry.
Absolutely.
I was going to say for the video overview, I've had educators even use it for parents to understand what's going on in the classroom. And they've kind of just sent that over so parents can kind of just see like a general idea of what's going on. And that helps them, be in the know of what's going on and then help their own children.
Yeah, that's a fantastic suggestion, actually. What a great way to create your, curriculum newsletter or talking about upcoming events. I love that idea. I think I will try that myself. Let's move on to mind maps. These are a great way to help you understand the connections between the sources that you've uploaded. So particularly if you're looking for, well, what are the things that are in common between the sources that I've uploaded? This really helps you. And this screen grab from a mind map just kind of shows you how you can click on the different arrows and it will expand or collapse particular levels of the tool. You can download this as well. It doesn't download an interactive tool, like this is interactive within Notebook. If you download it, it just downloads a PDF of the fully expanded mind map. But that could be quite helpful as well, to give to students as an overview of all the concepts in a particular course. So the mind map tool is excellent as well. And here's an example of the mind map. Oh, it's not going to play. All right. Then we will just move on. This is a little movie of just how you can expand and shrink the mind maps, but that's okay. Reports. There are a lot of pre-made options here. So you can see when you load this page, you've got create your own, you can create a briefing doc, a study guide, a blog post, and then based on your sources, you get a few different suggested formats that you can use. So you really, there are no limits on reports here. In my case, I chose, let's make a study guide because I'm preparing materials for my students for an upcoming learning outcome about the solar system. So I just created it and it saves it nicely for me in a Google Doc if I want it to. I can view it within Notebook, but you can see a little bit more. And it gave me a nice little study guide that starts with a quiz, an answer key, some essay questions, and then glossary of key terms, which is a great way Also, I use NotebookLM a lot, upload the curriculum and some different sources that we use out of approved resources, and ask it to generate vocabulary. I have only 2 students in my homeroom that speak English as a first language. So a lot of my students really need that support for vocabulary because they are learning English as an additional language. They're not speaking English at home, particularly in science, math, social studies. There's a lot of big vocabulary words that can be challenging even for students whose first language is English. So I use it to generate a lot of vocabulary lists for students. So super helpful as a tool there as well.
And it's editable, so that's also really important, I think, for educators is, you know, this is all great, but we can't just put it in and then use it. We do have to still vet it, make sure it's good, make sure it actually is appropriate. It is going to, it might be maybe too advanced or too simple. Some of those questions are not properly geared towards it. So I love the fact that it is editable as well. And like you said, with the key terms as well, maybe you add, you see, oh, can you simplify it a bit more for those students? Because in a grade 5, 6, it might be it might be more sophisticated language than maybe where they are as their English learning journey, or even adding a picture just to add to their understanding also.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always say this at the end, but it's probably worthwhile saying it throughout. Nothing replaces your professional judgment and your professional expertise. So I have never found any AI tool that has created a ready to go resource for me. I use AI a lot and it saves a ton of time, but it is absolutely your professional obligation to review everything as you would with any resource that you would, buy from anywhere that the district provides for you, to read it over and make sure. And I did find quite a few things, probably because of some of my sources were a little more advanced. A lot of the things that I got were a little too hard for what I was looking for, and I had to make some adjustments, and that's to be expected. Yeah. But if I started from scratch doing this, well, I don't even have the skills to make a video, so it
That
wouldn't
would
happen.
just, yeah, take too long. So now we're using our time as educators more wisely and focusing on the students, right? This helps us with the stuff we need, but now we can kind of do the human work of things and like, does this make sense for my students? I know my students well enough. Does this make sense? How can I make sure that it's geared correctly for them?
Absolutely. Yeah. It just buys us that time that we desperately need with our students as our classrooms get larger and more complex all the time. Flashcards, this is a fun one, and I use this a lot for vocabulary. So obviously, we're not talking about drill and skill here because I think we have kind of moved beyond that as a profession, hopefully in most cases, but it is a great way to review vocabulary. But it could also be a tool that some students might like once again, if this is permitted by your district, to show them how to create the flashcards, and they can upload their sources and really use the chat bot to customize the concepts that they find challenging, and generate some flashcards for their own study purposes, particularly thinking of higher grades. In when I've taught high school science, it can be students are always making flashcards for themselves, and it is a tool that I recommend for them for study, in like memorizing the steps of photosynthesis or whatever. They're very helpful tools. So this might be something that might be worthwhile for teaching to students. For me right now, I use it mostly for vocabulary with the vocabulary word on the front and the definition on the back. So just an opportunity for low stakes review. It's interactive. It keeps them a little bit more engaged that way than just pieces of paper or cue cards. And it's all grounded in your sources. So your material determines what the students see. So let's just take a peek at what they look like. So this is an example just of one that NotebookLM generated based on my space resources. So it is not just vocabulary, it's question. But You can see you have the front and back. They're a little more interactive and fun for students. And this one just generated 50 cue cards or flashcards for me. I can share the interactive version with students, or I can download them and get the PDF version.
Sorry, can you go back to that last one? I
Absolutely.
loved also like where the flashcard where the answer is and she'll explain. So if
Yes.
it's something like, what are you talking about? That wasn't the answer I thought of. Okay, here, let's explain it so you now understand it, right? It's not just about flashcards. I got 40 out of the 50 wrong. It's like, okay, of those 10 I got wrong, can I next time know what I'm talking about? Can I next time better understand that?
Yeah, and that I should have absolutely mentioned that. So thanks for jumping in there, Justine. It's great, and it is again pulled from your sources. So if you're allowed to use this in your district with students, you can generate these study sets for them that really are based only on the material that you've input, not some random website that they found. I can't tell you how many times I've had kids come to me and say, "Oh, did you know that there's a spaceship from another galaxy in the inner solar system right now," and you have to kind of disabuse them of the notion that they picked up on a TikTok video or their favorite YouTuber. So yeah, it's great because you're limiting it to exactly the sources that you're working with. You can generate a quiz as well. So multiple choice quizzes, again, from your sources. You can pick the options, number of this is the wrong screenshot, but anyways, you can customize the number of questions, the difficulty, refine the focus. And the great thing about it is that you get instant feedback. So let's move to the next slide here. And here's an example of a question from the quiz. So similar to that explain button in the flashcards, you have it as well in the quiz. So it tells me if I got the answer wrong. In this case, it says not quite, which is a nice way of saying no. But it tells the right answer. It gives a little explanation of why the right answer is right, the wrong answer is wrong. And again, that explain button is there that you can click to get a deeper explanation. Once again, based all on your sources. So that's an example of each of the studio tools. Right now, let's take a couple of minutes for you to go back. You've uploaded your sources. Take some time in Notebook right now, NotebookLM, and play around a little bit with some of the sources that are there that you've uploaded. Try some of the studio tools.
And as we're going through that, you know those, Catherine, those two gray ones, which was the infographic and the slide
Slide
deck.
deck. Mhm.
So what I've heard, at least it's in my district, is that they were open at some point and they're shifting them over to the paid. So they're giving
Okay.
you a because we were using it quite often in ours, and then I think yesterday one of the resource teachers in my department said, "Oh, I could only do one infographic," and then it told me I couldn't. This is the
Oh,
thing too with these, right?
yeah.
We have to use them, but be mindful. Some of these they take them away, but hopefully it's good that, we still I think video and audio will always kind of be there. Those are their prized possessions on Notebook
Yeah.
LM.
Yeah.
Um, but those
Oh,
are
I do
I would
see.
just
Yeah, if I hover over them, I don't remember. Maybe the infographic I used before. I don't remember the slide deck, but it says currently unavailable, but we're working on bringing these back. So interesting.
hopefully. So we saw that it was paid, but for all we know, that's what we were told, and maybe it'll come back, or maybe it'll come back limited. And I think that's also important to note. Sometimes, like what Catherine talked about with the 50, right? We have those 50 sources. Sometimes, especially with AI, sometimes they'll limit you with, the amount of things. I've never gotten to a limit yet, but maybe because I don't use it that much. You never know if there's like a limit to how many podcasts I can create.
Right.
Um, but yeah, and I think the biggest thing too that you mentioned, Catherine, is like how long those videos and audios can take. So you can't just think that, okay, I'm going to do this in real time because it's not going to work
Yeah.
sometimes.
I was
Especially
going
with
to
I don't know
say
about
it's,
you, but school Wi-Fi can be another challenge
oh,
sometimes.
yeah. Yeah.
So it is something that, there is a lot of front loading when it comes to NotebookLM, but the possibilities with it are incredible.
Absolutely. And I was going to say, if you're trying out the studio tools right now, you can expect to listen to your audio overview or see your video overview after the session is over,
And
because it's
it'll
not
start
going to get
loading. You'll
done.
see it starting, but
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
it has started.
Yeah, the other ones are pretty instant, but those ones do take some time. But you can still generate a report or a mind map or flashcards while you're waiting for your audio overview to
Yeah, you don't get
finish
that's nice too. You
processing.
don't have to just wait for that one.
Yeah,
Some places like you're stuck with that. I also love the fact that like the audio and video, it just gives those students who, think and absorb information differently the way they need it, right?
absolutely. That's one of the things that I appreciate most about it, is that I can, for the same amount of work it would take me to create one resource, I can create 3 or 4 in different formats that are important for different types of learners in my classroom, and varying degrees of language ability as well, because
Yeah.
that is a major um, issue in most of our, I would imagine, most of our settings. I hear it even from a lot of my rural colleagues, is there's a lot of English language learners as well.
Yeah. And then even for like admin or educators, I know a lot of the admin in my school board, once we showed them NotebookLM, they've been using that podcast, the audio overview in the car just to listen, just to understand the things that they need, because there's a lot of, as educators, as admin, wherever you are in the school board, there's a lot we need to know at all times,
Mhm.
to cater to pedagogy, to curriculum, to student well-being, right? And like you said,
Absolutely.
professional knowledge. So that helps, right?
Yeah, generate some podcasts to listen when you're walking
And they're
with
engaging.
your,
And they're very engaging, the
they are.
two AI voices that sound very much like people.
I'm amazed. I'm surprised that Siri and Alexa and the other tools sound so stilted when you see what you can get with these audio overviews. Why don't we move on, as we are nearing our ending time, amazingly, so that we can talk a little bit more about the rich tools that are available for you in chat. And this is where you can really refine your notebook or your workspace, whatever term you prefer. I tend to use notebook because it is called NotebookLM. So when you upload your sources, I'm sure you all notice that it generated a summary for you. If you only upload one source, it generates a summary of the source. And then as you add the others, it refines what is there and kind of tells you what you uploaded, just the general overview of it. Now you can use the prompts to refine the results, because unless all you want is just a really concise summary of your sources, you're going to need to do a little bit more refining there. So in this case, this chat works much like the other chat tools that you're familiar with, Chat GPT, Gemini. I love to use Claude. I like that one. That's the Anthropic product, and that one's also really good. But once again, I'm using free on everything. So I tend to run up against you've asked me something too many times, wait until 9 p.m. or wait until tomorrow. So far, again, I also have not reached the limit on NotebookLM, and I really appreciate that. So here's an example of a screen where I had some sources uploaded about the brain, about learning, about knowledge transfer, and I asked it a prompt. What role do motivation, self-regulation, and context play in transferring knowledge across new situations? So it looked at all my sources. I've got a PDF, I've got a couple of websites, and I've got a couple of YouTube videos there. And it generated a nice response for me that sort of summarizes all the information in that variety of sources. And you can see it also gives me some suggestions there, like list the 3 phases of self-regulated learning, or explain Bandura's concept of triadic reciprocality, right? So it gives you some options. This is obviously my research and not for students. Although you never know, maybe in a high school psychology course, you could talk about learning in this way. But you can use that chat to help refine the responses. So that's the place to start. One thing that I love with NotebookLM is its tables. I think it does a fantastic job on tables. So here I've asked it to create a table to help students distinguish between physical change and chemical change. And my sources are a science textbook, grade 9 science, and slides that I use to teach atomic structure and stability. So it's pulling on my materials that I'm using for my students, that's on my Google Classroom, that I'm sharing in class, as well as their textbook. So this would be something that I could share with students. I could click that share button and share this notebook with them because it has those two sources that are clearly what they're using in school. One of the things that's really fantastic about NotebookLM is that it shares the citations. So you can see these tiny little number 1, number 2. When you hover over those, it shows you what source it's from and a little summary of the source. So that is a fantastic feature of that I think is really worthwhile pointing out. So you can tell exactly where it came from, particularly if a student is working on writing a paper. It helps them avoid accidentally plagiarizing and just reminds them that they're pulling the information from a source. And good for grown-ups to understand that as well. So here's an example, and I did have a video to show, but I don't think it's going to play because the other one didn't play. So it was just showing how you could drop down and get more information from the sources, but I've described that narratively there. If you wish to save any of your chats as a note, you can do that, and they save in the studio window on the right-hand side. And then you have the option to convert a note to a source. So if for example, that table about chemical and physical change, I thought, oh, that's amazing. If only I could now use that information for my next prompt, you can do that. Click Save to Note, and then in your studio window, convert to source. So you can also convert all your notes to sources if you want, although I've never come across a situation where I wanted to do that. But I have converted some of the notes to sources. You can also upload, a Google Doc of your own creation, like I did with my slides on atomic stability, and use yourself as a source if you wish as well. So it doesn't have to be only external sources. Okay, so now take a little bit of time, go into your own NotebookLM, the notebook that you just created, and explore some of those features in chat. Try one of its suggestions. Sometimes I find that gives me surprising results that I wasn't expecting, that are surprisingly helpful. Also try out using your own prompt to further refine your results.
And check if your audio or video is available now. You never know. One of them, if you did try, it might be ready. You never know. I do love the suggestions. I think the suggestions are great. Because I forget there's certain things like, oh yeah, that does. It helps. You also almost think as an educator what students might ask. Like it kind of like, oh yeah, they might think of this or consider this depending on the age as well.
Especially as we have, like, the more experience we have, we know the common errors that students make as well. And so that could be something that we could ask is, oh, every year they always ask, well, why isn't this? And so you could include that as a question and generate responses so that you have materials ready to go. Or prompt students to use it in that way.
Yeah, and again, I really liked the citation part of things, right? I think in our world, students just see what they see on social media and believe it to be true. And we have to kind of pull that back and remind them like citations are important. Knowing what you're putting out there is important, and being critical, have that criticality of, okay, this is what the output is it true or not? Right? Or if I'm not sure, this is where I got it from. I think that part's really important, especially as they get into post-secondary, if that's their choice, like that becomes really important. And sometimes we don't have that same pressure all the time in elementary or secondary because we're still learning those things, but sometimes it just hits you in the face when it comes to post-secondary or even the workplace when you're putting things, right? What are we being mindful of the things we are doing? Because what we're doing right now with Notebook LM is grabbing the information, but how are we putting it out there? Are we making sure, like we've talked about vetting it, making sure it makes sense for our students, or are we being kind of disruptive and just throwing it out there?
Exactly. And I notice if you use one of the other Gen AI tools like Gemini, Copilot, whatever, you can uh, give it some sources. It would like they're quite limited. Some of them only allow 1 or 2 uploads in a day, but you could upload 1 or 2 PDFs and provide a few links and say, "Can you summarize this material, compare and contrast?" And it will do that, but it's not telling you specifically this point comes from this source and this point comes from this source. And I think that's one of the areas where Notebook really, really stands out for academic purposes, whether it's our own pursuit of continuing education or preparing students for academic integrity as they get older and older, and that becomes a greater and greater expectation. So super important. We shall forge ahead right now. Let's focus back on our sources. We can use Notebook LM to help dig deeper in our own sources. So when you're in that left-hand tab, the source tab, you can click on your own source and then select from a couple of different options. First of all, it does give you this quick little summary of that individual source. So if you you notice in the main chat window, we get the summary of all the sources we've uploaded. But if you're like, wait, I put 6 sources in here, now I'm getting kind of a little confused. Which one is the one that has whatever? You can click on it and get a brief little summary of it in within the source window. And then there are some different options that you get when you click on the individual source, and you can select a subtopic within that source. So you can see what I've done here is I'm talking about atomic structure and stability. I've brought up that slideshow that I use to teach with. It gives me a little guide of the source. And then one of the suggestions was discuss atomic models. And I thought, oh, that's good because this is an area that students often have challenge with. That's in the curriculum. What's another new way that I can think about this that's using the sources I have? And so you can use Notebook to help you even dig deeper into individual sources. So strongly recommend doing that. And deep research is Notebook LM's newest feature now. It may not be available to you because they are using a gradual rollout, and unfortunately, it is featured for me, but it was not available for me as a feature. So I can't really give you a huge example, but I can show you from some screenshots here. This is some of the things that that it can do when it's rolled out. So it's supposed to be rolled out later this year. We're getting to the end of the year, so maybe early into next year. But you can choose resources either from the web or from Google Drive. So this is a little newer where it seems to be kind of reaching out to, do you want to search the internet for more sources? Do you want me to suggest more sources to go with what you've got? So I think that's opening the tool up a little bit. Again, that I would say use with caution. Nothing can replace your own professional judgment and discretion. So I think it's an opportunity. So that was the deep resource option, but they also had this one called fast resource, fast research, which they say is great for quick results. I can't say for sure what it can do for you because it's not, I haven't had the feature rolled out, but it is in fact coming. So I don't know, Justine, have you been able to use that one yet?
I haven't, but I can see it in terms of, like we just talked about, web sources and not being able to properly vet them or not knowing what's there, but maybe finding a web source and now using it in Notebook to almost vet it or ask those questions. Does it actually make sense for the resource that I'm using it for? Is this a website that I feel is okay now to give to my students as one of the source texts that we are connected to curriculum. That's the way I would possibly use it, instead of me, again, having to read through the whole website and trying to find things, asking it those particular questions to see if the information is on that website. So now I can say, okay, this one's an okay website for you guys to use. Especially for me, I've taught more the junior, higher elementary, junior, or primary, junior grades.
Mhm.
So that understanding of research is hard for them. So it's really me giving them those sources.
Yeah.
So it's my due diligence to make sure. And that might be a way of being like, all right, this is a great one about habitats. Here you
Yeah.
go.
And it could also be you don't know what you don't know. Maybe there's a great website out there and you don't know about it, but NotebookLM could help you find it because it's relevant to your existing sources, right? So I will look forward to trying this one out. The final thing I wanted to talk about is just this could be a great way for you to collaborate with your teammates. So if you're in a team teaching situation, let's say you're teaching grade 9 science, we do cover the solar system in grade 9 as well. And there's 4 teachers on the team. And I put together this notebook and it has great resources and I want to share with them. I can share with my colleagues just by clicking that share button. The other option that I have is to share with students. And again, that depends on your school district's guidelines, but it is something that you might want to do if you want to carefully curate a notebook and share that with your students and let them try out the tools there. You know what sources they're interacting with, and you have vetted that list. And so that might be a great option as well. Certainly in larger settings where there's a lot of staff in a department, this can just be a great way to share learning outcome, like notebooks that are related to specific learning outcomes or specific topics, or even a whole course. I could see that being something that you could build out with time within a team. So I think there's a ton of possibility here just for staff collaboration as well as sharing with students. All right. So are there questions from our participants? Anything that we can help clarify for you before we work on wrapping things up here? The link to the slides is there again, but
I think that's the old link. So look on
okay, right.
the You know what I think it was, Catherine? Because we edited it and it was already on the stage.
I
Maybe we
think
had to
so.
remove it and re-edit it. But
Yeah,
we learn as we
we
go.
now know.
But the one that's in the chat on the YouTube on the channel that we've been posting, that is the correct one. It's always been the correct one that I have up there. I don't see any questions. Hopefully that means we're diving deep, or we have just are ready to go.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is we gotta get into it, and
It
then
is
you'll have
kind of, you got to
questions.
play with it and try it out
Yes.
and see how it meets your needs. Great. Well, let's take a couple minutes just to remind you once again, you can get that certificate for yourself. So scan that QR code or go to the link there. And remember, the session title is Notebook LM for Beginners. Unfortunately, we did update this slide, but it didn't transfer over to here. And this is what I would really like to focus on. Take a moment to let us know how we did. And this actually is so important for us and our funding partners. It's really, really helpful to give feedback to our funding partners about our sessions, and super helpful for us as well so that we can provide you with learning, professional learning that is really helpful. So please take a moment to click on that link and give us feedback about our session today. We really, really appreciate it. Next up, again, another reminder about all the amazing learning opportunities happening this month for yourself, and also to extend it into your classroom. So we have a bunch of different hands-on virtual classroom workshops where you get a great facilitator who works with you and your students. They have their devices out. They're really engaging and interactive. I love doing these with my students. They love participating in them. They're always asking me, when's our next logic session? They really, really enjoy it. And you get the opportunity to sort of learn along with your class. You don't have to be the expert in coding in Minecraft or Canva or whatever other tool that you're using. You can learn alongside with your students. So strongly recommend that. Once again, here's the link to the feedback. If you need any support, you can email events@logixacademy.com. And we thank you very much for your participation today.
Thank you. Right on time, 5 seconds.
Woohoo!
Thank you, and hopefully you guys are going to the next one and enjoy.